Hey everybody, I'm Kraig Strom. I'm known as the Income Engineer. You can find me any number of places, but check out personalpensionformulation.com and our new podcast coming up, Personal Pension Radio. Personal Pension Radio podcast will be launched here in January. So today, actually, I want to take some time to go over something that came out of a radio show that I heard over the weekend. So I heard this radio show, and I listen to a lot of radio shows and podcasts, and I read a lot, essentially so that I can be prepared for questions that might come up, or also uncover things that just, either don't make sense or are making perfect sense that I would like to incorporate into my practice. But in this case, it was a comment made by the financial advisor who hosts the show that made me say, wow, I've never heard that before. I wonder how that really works, or if it really works. So let me set this up for you. Here's the call. Just to give you a little background, the financial advisor who hosts the show is actually on the largest talk radio show in Southern California, if not the nation, in Los Angeles. And this gentleman has been in business for 20, 25 years or more. So definitely has all the credentials as a financial advisor. So that's why it really surprised me that he gave out this bit of advice. So here's what what the call looked like. He had a gentleman call in who said that he has 5 years until retirement, and that his target goal was $80,000 per year in income. So $80,000 per year in income. Now, the financial advisor, rightfully so, said, well, are you going to have Social Security? Now, just as a side note, for those of you who might still have a CalPERS or CalSTRS or a government-related pension, pensions don't exist for the most part anymore. Pensions that actually give you guaranteed income, very few and far between. So this gentleman did not have a pension other than Social Security. So the estimate was somewhere, they said, well, sure, you're going to get something about maybe, $30,000, let's say, from Social Security. So let's say you get somewhere around $30,000 from Social Security. That's a good point. That's probably exactly what will happen from Social Security. So now what we're talking about is retiring in 5 years, but we really only need $50,000 per year. Oh, that makes sense, right? Okay, now, this is where the piece of advice that blew me away came from. He said, well, there's a good rule of thumb that you can, we need a lot more research and looking into your personal situation, but the general rule of thumb is just take that $50,000, okay, and add a zero. So now we've got $500,000. And then take that number and double it. So what you've got is $1 million. So $1 million is the amount of money that you should have saved as a general rule of thumb. Now, of course, this is a radio call-in show. The financial advisor did not have a lot of time to go into the details of this particular person's life situation. So he gave this general idea. And my thought as a financial advisor is, I wonder how those numbers work because I've never heard this before. So let's do the math because we've got to dig in deeper to find out, does this have any hope of actually working? Because this financial advisor said this is a rule of thumb, a general idea. But does this really have any hope of working? So let's do the math because we're talking about $1 million, and we need $50,000 a year is a draw. We need $50,000 a year as a draw. Now, that's an important term. That is not rate of return. So we all know that that's 5%, right? So we've got that. That equals a 5% draw, right? $50,000 is not necessarily a rate of return. It's not an interest rate. It's not the ups or downs of the market. That's how much money we want to draw out of an account. And what most people don't realize is the rules associated with taking money out of an account are completely different than putting money in and leaving it there. Very different. So when we start to draw money out, there's a very significant risk. Now I'm going to put notes in here in the YouTube video and in the show notes to other videos that talk about sequence risk. If you've never heard about sequence risk, you absolutely need to watch that video as well. Also, I will cover in a lot more detail Monte Carlo simulations and so forth, but in this example, I just wanted to test it out and say, if we have this example as a general rule of thumb, what the advisor is saying that you should be okay drawing a 5% draw from your $1 million, and you probably won't run out of money. Well, let's test it. Let's actually see what the financial advisor community software, they use a particular program called Monte Carlo simulations. Let's look at a Monte Carlo simulation to figure out if this works. So here we go. So I'm going to bring down this. This is actually a Monte Carlo simulator from Vanguard. Vanguard is a gigantic mutual fund company, but you can actually go to your Google search and you can type in retirement nest egg calculator and you'll get a Monte Carlo simulator. This is the same type of software that financial advisors and Wall Street advisors have used for decades to analyze and estimate the probabilities of running out of money. Not the probabilities of living a long and fruitful life, but the probabilities that a certain draw rate will create failure. What are the chances that you would actually have a failure where you ran out of money before you ran out of life? So the retirement nest egg calculator is actually a Monte Carlo simulation. You'll notice down here that the words Monte Carlo simulation are kind of hiding down here in the bottom. Okay, so let's look at it. What we have first is we have to figure out how long could someone and their spouse live in retirement. And you know, the way medical science is today, is it possible that we could live to be 35 years in retirement? With a husband and wife nowadays, there's much higher odds that one of them could live to be 90 or 95 years old, right? So we've got to be prepared for a long, long life. And here we've got our $1 million. So we leave that there. And what was our income number we're targeting? $45,000. $50,000. There we go. $50,000. So this software comes with a default arrangement for your assets in retirement. And it's bonds and stocks and cash. And so there's a default that I tend to let Vanguard, who is this gigantic financial company, I tend to let their default stand. So who am I or anyone else to say that I'm smarter than Vanguard? Let's start there. And we're going to run the simulation. So we run it, and they're doing 5,000 different calculations right now. Okay. So based on the general advice that the advisor gave over the radio, we ran 5,000 different simulations. And what does that mean? It means that they did different starting points and highs and lows and good years and bad years and all different times and periods to test, drawing $50,000 out of a pile of $1 million. And what they found was that there was a 32% chance of success. A 32% chance of success, so that your odds, when you look at it, you literally have a 68% chance of failure. A 68% chance of failure if you have a 32% chance of success. So ask yourself this question. You just stop and ask, if you would this be comfortable for you? Are you comfortable with these kind of odds in retirement, that you have a 68% chance that you could run out of money? I don't know about you, but I'm not. So what can we do to change that? right? He said add a zero and double it. Clearly that's not going to get us to a safe retirement situation. So if we look at these numbers, what can we do? What can we change? Well, couldn't we maybe not live as long? That's not a very happy one to think about. If we just don't live as long, what if we just live 30 years? We cut 5 years off of our total lifespan, and now we have a 52% chance of success. So now we have a 48% chance of failure. But all we had to do is just not live as long, right? Well, that's not very good. So let's put that back up. What if we saved twice as much money? Sacrificed our lifestyle as much as we could to save. So now we save twice as much money. I think that might just do it. There you go. All you got to do is double the amount of savings, and you've got a 100% chance that you won't run out of money, right? Now, just so you know, that doesn't mean that there's a 100% chance that you'll have $2 million 35 years from now. It just means that you had at least $1. At least $1. Okay? So let's put this back, because that's not realistic. Really, telling someone that you've got to double the amount of savings that you had intended to do, that's hard. We got lives, we got family and kids and school, and that's tough. So really, the only one that we can probably control the most is the bottom number, which is how much we take out. So what if we lower this down to 40,000 or 4%? We take a $10,000 cut in our retirement income, and we run the simulation. See what it looks like. 76% chance that we will not run out of money, which means, unfortunately, we still have a 24% chance that we would actually run out of money. And just for the record, a 24% chance, when you think about this, that means that out of all of those 5,000 different calculations, 1,250 of them failed. Meaning there's 1,250 chances in this scenario that you actually still run out of money. So if you're comfortable with the idea of a 24% failure rate, that $40,000 could work, but certainly not 50,000, 5%. Okay? So when we come back here just to look at the numbers, this is where I was just amazed at this piece of advice. Take a 5% draw. Well, a 5% draw, what was it? It was a 32% chance of failure, and a 4% draw was still a 32% chance of success, and then a 4% draw, we only still got up to a 76% chance. So this means that we had a 68% chance over here and a 24% chance of failure. We just have to ask ourselves, is that the kind of advice we want to listen to? Is that the kind of general advice that we want to listen to? And there's got to be a better way, and I'm here to tell you as we end, there is. Personalpensionformulation.com, check it out. Free report, start there. Great education, great information. Personalpensionformulation.com, and look for the launch of Personal Pension Radio, the new podcast coming. I'll talk to you again real soon.